In this video, we're gonna cover 6 things that product managers really do. Stay tuned to find out. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nicky Sujadi and I have a friend and a guest here with me today. If you have watched my previous video, you have seen him around as well. He is Albert Jaja.
Yes.
And he is a product manager currently in Tokopedia. Maybe I'll let Albert introduce himself a bit more.
Yeah. Hi again, Nicky. Okay.
So Albert is currently working in Tokopedia as a product manager, and he actually has been around in a tech startup phase for quite a while. He started off in Traveloka, which is a travel industry tech startup, going to Gojek, ride-hailing and on-demand services.
Yes, correct.
And right now he's in Tokopedia, which, if you haven't followed the news, is gonna be merging with Gojek. So he's sort of back to his old company, and he want to share pretty much his experiences being a product manager in all the tech related roles that he has been in. There are 6 things that we want to cover in this video. Maybe Albert, can you share what are the 6 things that you want to touch on?
Okay, yes, thanks for having me back, Nicky, on
worries.
your wonderful channel. So, yes, as Nicky mentioned, so on a high level, like what a PM does, they are your customer advocates in the company. So they are responsible to really understand the customer needs, their pain points, and then to actually articulate a product vision that solves those customer problems. So that's like the really high level. And as Nicky mentioned, there are 6 things. The first one is they have to really understand the user and the market. That's the first point. Then the second point is they have to build the business strategy around those needs, and then they have to develop a product vision based on where you want to bring the product. And then number 4, it's working with designers to actually create a delightful user experience on the app. And then on the 5th, after you do all that, you then build the product. This is where most people think the actual job is, but this part of the job actually comes on the
5th step.
On the 5th step itself. And the last step is when, after shipping it, you want to measure and learn from launching the product.
So it's actually a step-by-step thing, right? Before you launch a product, you need to understand what product you want to make.
Yes,
so that's where
correct.
the first to the 5th is. The first to the 4th step, is it?
Correct,
to understand what
correct,
product
correct.
to make.
Yeah.
And then the 5th step is making the product, and the 6th step is actually launching it and reviewing it.
Correct, yes.
So how do we actually determine what products to make?
First of all, are very responsible for really understanding the customers, and to do that you need to understand the market you're playing in. Like that comes into like the industry you're in. How does the industry work? For example, if you're in finance, like there'll be many institutions you need to take into consideration. How does all the different players in the market actually interact with one another?
Okay.
So that's the first one. And of course you need to understand who are the other players in the market. You essentially have to drive the business in a way, and so understanding all that is very important.
So the first step is to actually understand not just the customers but also your competitors. Pretty much all the players that's gonna touch your product, right?
Correct,
Okay.
yes. Because you want to eventually convince your customers, like, why should they use your product over your competitors?
So it's understanding also the value proposition.
Yes, the value proposition.
And that is coming from the customer side, what customer wants, and also what's not available in the market, like the gap that you can sort of tackle into.
Correct. And you do that through analyzing the data, gathering as much data as you can on your customers, or you can just talk to them, like interview them, get to know like, why do you use the product? What are your triggers to using it? Why do you choose a certain product over another? So those are the kind of things you want to find out.
So it's customer survey. So is that something that you actually do on your, I don't know, not day to day, but do you actually do that quite often?
I think so, because the best inputs you can get is through your customers. So like some people make the mistake of looking at what the competition does only, or what you want, or how you want to build the business, like you just want to get more profit. But at the end of the day, what you are really focused on is how you are solving the customer problems. So you want to be very clear on
very customer centric.
Yes, customer obsessed.
Very key. Customer obsessed in Tokopedia's words.
Amazonian.
Amazon.
Correct.
Alright, that's good. And then the second step is...
So after you are able to like, yes, this is the pain point I want to solve. Like you cannot just solve a pain point that doesn't earn any income for the business.
Fair.
Like you need to really understand like what is your company's business model. Like you need to know like does building this product make economical sense?
Okay.
Like can we actually if at the end of the day get some income or grow the business to the next level? So for example, if you're say making a new online groceries application, like you need to figure out like how you want to structure your business model. Like do you want to actually just have a driver, you order on the app and the driver picks up from let's say 7-Eleven grocery products, or do you actually want to have your own warehouse where you pre-purchase all these essential goods on your own warehouse and you essentially fulfill the products on your own? Like this is a sub question you want to ask, like because you need to understand which one makes which is more profitable. Like one of the model might be more costly than the other, but it depends again on your strategy. So really understanding like how your product contributes to your business is very important there.
Okay, so not only you want to solve customers' problem, you also want to make sure you solve business problem. All right.
Yes, but customer comes first.
Customer comes first.
Correct.
Very PC, yeah.
It's true.
Well, but to be fair, right? We are business after all.
Yes.
You want to make sure that it's sustainable.
Correct.
So there has to be a business sense to it, right?
Yes.
So as much as we want to be obsessed with customers, we want to be obsessed with the business, building the business as well, growing the business.
Correct.
All right. So that's a good second step. What's the third step?
And the third step is after you essentially. I think PMs was very important. Actually, this is a very important one as well. I think PMs has to really think long term. When you have a product solution, you want to think what is 5-10 years from now. What is in trend? Like it's very easy to know what's hot now. You know, it's like
BTS.
Like okay, BTS is hot now. It's very easy to say like, oh yeah, let's do a product to maybe make use of BTS's fame.
Right.
Let's say. But as a PM, like you want to go beyond that. You want to know what is the thing in the next 3 to 5 years. What's going to disrupt the market? What are the new technologies that is coming up that you can capitalize on your product roadmap? So building that vision is actually a very important aspect. Actually, that's what differentiates like a great PM and a good one.
Ooh, that's a very nice topic.
Yes.
And I think we can dive deep into that topic in a separate video, so do check that out.
Correct. It's for an example, like the reason why some players in the market are left behind and disrupted is because, let's say Netflix, for example, they were able to view back then when streaming wasn't a thing.
True.
They knew that it was a much better way to consume video content, and they actually went into the industry and Blockbuster, who was actually disrupted, failed to realize that because they felt that what they were doing was already so lucrative.
Exactly.
And I think if you're a great PM, you're able to actually see where the industry is going to move forward into and actually build your roadmap towards like the next thing and then make hence a very successful product launch.
That's actually a very good point. And I want to add a bit more, which is that example, like, you know, is it Blockbuster or?
Yeah, that was like, I think the player that was disrupted.
Yeah. Or Video Easy, right? Last time we used to have that.
I think locally, yes.
Video Easy, where we rent DVDs. And I think the reason why the fall of them, right, is that they lose their obsession with the customers. You know, essentially customers, the reason why their business are there is because customers want to watch movies or series, right? And what's the best way to give value to that, right? And they're very obsessed in the how, which is like, okay, renting of DVDs to them. But they're not obsessed that, hey, customers are looking for different ways to watch movies because that's what their end goal is.
Correct.
And that's what Netflix comes in and disrupts. It's like, say, hey, you can watch Netflix or any movies you want at a click of a button. You don't have to go out and rent it. Yeah. Right? And they forgot that to have that customer centricness.
Yes. So often you'll see like the players who are still in the market going strong, they are able to self-evolve. So like you can see it in Amazon where they are self-disrupting themselves. You see it in Apple how they are self-disrupting themselves. Like that's why I think if you're a really good PM, you're able to actually have a foresight of this and then push your company towards that direction.
Okay, that's good. So third point is to have a product vision.
Correct.
Because not having a product vision will make sure that you get disrupted quick by other disruptors.
So those first 3 points are like like what you want to create. So that's essentially what you do. And then the next 3 point is more specifically on the execution of the vision.
Okay.
So like the fourth point which we're going to cover is the creating a very delightful user experience. So commonly you will work with designers to actually come up with like the UI or the UX of your features. So this is actually again important. Most people think that it's all about building the technology and they don't consider the user experience.
Yeah.
But if you look at some of the disruptive user experiences in the market, like Uber for example, like taxis were very abundant back then. Like everyone's taking taxis like the status quo. But when they came in with a brand new user experience, you can book a car with a click of a button and have the car arrive exactly where you are. You just make the payment cashless and arrive at your destination. I think that's like a game-changing user experience. It's like the number 4 point is actually very important as well.
Actually, that's a very good point. Like, to be honest, when Uber came into on board and really disrupt that taxi ride-hailing sort of industry, right? The first thing that came to my mind was like, dude, like taxi is like such an old industry, you know? Like, how did someone actually make that interesting again? And I think that's why also coming back to the last point, which is the product vision, and also disrupting it by the user experience, because you're really disrupting the whole how we work pretty much.
Yes.
Right? And I think that's just the exciting things. What make tech startup like Gojek or Tokopedia the way they are right now.
It's that constant innovation. Like it's essentially like coming up with a very fresh idea that solves a problem.
Correct.
So like this part of this step is also like this is where you work with designers. You create your wireframes. You draw. That's essentially just drawing out like the architecture of how the app looks like from like page 1 all the way to page 100, for example. And then normally like in this step it's very important for the product manager to validate if this is what the users like.
Okay, if it's a good user journey.
Correct. So you create a prototype, you hand it to like a user. Like we have this new feature to, let's say, maybe back then Uber, like, hey, let's say you can book a Uber taxi with this app. Like try out the app on your own, see what feedbacks you have. Like gathering those feedbacks before you actually move forward to the 5th step of building is actually very important.
Okay.
So when you validate, that's when you actually have a real validation of your solution.
So you validate whether it's a good user journey by experimenting it first.
Correct.
And see whether is the button placement correct. You know, do people can people see it? Is that the intuitive way?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And is that something designing, right? Is that what a PM does, or is that what a PM manage? Like, do they have a designer in the product team, or is that what a product manager do? Like, do they actually create wireframes?
That's a good question. So, the product managers are jack of all trades. But I wouldn't say master of none, but they are not master of all the trades that they have to do. So one of them being design. So PM would typically collaborate with like designers on, they just have to articulate the vision of what they want to build, and then that's when they collaborate with the designers. Like the designers will think about, they'll have better expertise in designing the flow.
Okay.
So as a PM, your job is just to make sure that it's aligned to the vision, it's addressing the customer problems, and you have to have an eye for what a good design is and what not a good design is.
I see.
I think that's as far as the PM's role is as part of the development.
I see.
But yeah, you don't have to design or anything.
Right. So
don't fret if you're not a designer. So.
Okay, that's good to hear, because I like good design, but I just do not know how to do wireframing.
Right, yeah, you just have to know, like, you just have to keep asking yourself again. That's why it's back to the real scope of your work is like being customer centric. So you are always there to direct your designers back to, is this actually solving the customer pain point? And sometimes you do not want them to go like too fancy on a design that doesn't really solve the actual problem.
Got it.
So you're just there to anchor.
Nice. All right. So that the first step of actually creating the product is actually creating the user experience, the user journey, which is the wireframing and all that.
Yes.
What's the next step?
The 5th one is where most people think the bulk of our work is. Well, it takes up quite a chunk, but it's where after you have gathered all the previous 4 points, you got your vision, you know where you're going, you articulate that in PRD. That's like your product requirement document. So that's where you have to be very comprehensive with what you want to build. So it's actually what that document does is like a manual to articulate what you're trying to do to the engineers.
Yeah.
So they'll read it, they will understand, oh, so we are solving this problem, hence we need this feature. And then what this feature does, it needs to articulate it very clearly. It needs to consider like all the edge cases.
Yeah.
So you need to take into account what happens if the button don't work, what happens if, let's say, the user is not verified, what is the flow like. It needs to articulate that very comprehensively.
Right.
And then that's when you work with engineers, you make sure that it ships on time with no bugs.
Which usually there is bugs.
Yeah, there's a lot of bugs, and this step is quite a tedious one.
Would you say this is the longest step?
Actually, it's a long step if you didn't plan well.
If your PRD is not clear enough, right?
If you are not addressing the right problem and you are reiterating on the process.
I see.
So common mistakes made, even I've done it myself, where the planning bit, which was the initial 4-step that was explained earlier, wasn't defined well. You'll often struggle in this step. That's when your engineers are confused. Where is it going? You figure out, oh, I haven't addressed this particular case that should have been in the PRD, and then you have to rework again.
I get what you mean.
And then there's a lot of bugs because your requirement maybe wasn't complete. Yeah, so the planning, if well done, this step actually will be a lot smoother.
Okay.
So
actually,
good planning makes for an easier execution.
You know what? Actually, that's such an important step, right? That we can have a separate video to dive deep a bit more about how to create a good PRD, and I think this will be a good differentiator between a good PM on excellent PM. So I think we can. If you'd like to know more about this or any particular questions, please leave in the comment section. And at the same time, if you find values from these contents, please do give a thumbs up. Okay, thumbs up to Albert, who has been featured in the videos for 4 times now.
Thanks for featuring me that many times.
And subscribe for more of these if you like more of this career-related content or even financial-related content, which we'll talk more about that later on.
Okay.
But we will not forget the last step. Alright, the last step of a product manager.
And again, a very important step. I think all the steps here are important, but this last step, have to be done. Yes, so the 6th step is measuring and learning from your product launches. This again is a very important step. All the steps are important, but this is an often forgotten step in what a PM does. A lot of people like to launch the feature to the market, and they move on to the next thing. Like not measuring whether it's successful or not. So this step is actually very important. So this is where you define what it means, what success means for the product.
What success means. So this 6th step is to define what success means.
Correct. Actually, you should do this earlier, but I will just put it on the 6th point.
Okay.
So you need to know what you're measuring and how do you determine if the product was a success or not.
Oh, so is this where you look into metrics?
Correct. You need to pick the right metrics.
So picking the right metrics
is important.
Also very important.
So people should understand there are output metrics and input metrics.
Alright, what's that?
So your output metrics are things like that, how we measure how successful a business is. Like, revenue numbers, user numbers, or stock price. Those are your output matrix. This is what your company goals are typically are. But if you just try to optimize on that, you can't really do anything. It's not controllable,
Right.
If I tell you please increase revenue, how do you do that? You need another matrix where it's controllable. You're able, what you do can directly impact that matrix, but that matrix will impact the output matrix. So for example, if Airbnb wants to optimize the number of nights that's being booked, if you think about how do we increase the nights, you can't really come with any concrete ideas. But instead, if you actually realize, when we have professional photographers uploading high quality pictures on their website, the bookings actually increase. If you notice that correlation there, you optimize on the input matrix, which is the number of quality photos being uploaded.
Wow, how do you actually identify that particular input metrics? Because there has to be a lot of experiments of comparing high quality image to low quality image and making everything else the same,
Yeah.
then you see the differences and you're like, oh, okay, so the difference is this and it's causing this much uplift. So we should focus more on this. Like, does that mean like you have to do a lot of experimentation in that way?
Not really. You just have to do some correlation analysis. So you can actually try to find correlation, like we notice more bookings being made by rooms with high quality image. Say you found that correlation there.
Right.
Then you try experimenting, maybe like, okay, our hypothesis is that. Then let's try experimenting on that one thing. Let's try have the same rooms with different pictures and see which one has a higher number of bookings.
I see.
So you can do that and then you optimize towards what you realize is the input metrics that you should be goaling for.
Okay, so that's how you choose the metrics. There is two type of metrics: input metrics and output metrics. These metrics will be useful in identifying whether the product is successful or not, or to what extent is it successful.
Yeah. So after you identify that, then you will look at your launch and see how they're impacting those input metrics.
Okay.
So if they are not doing that well, you have to figure out why and reiterate accordingly.
I see.
So that's why this last part is very important, because if you don't actually look into these numbers after you launch your product,
True.
you wouldn't be able to know whether you're actually doing the right thing or not. So,
That's a very good point.
yes, which is why it's very important but often forgotten. 6 point for a PM.
I see. Alright, thank you everyone for watching these videos. If you've gone this far, I really appreciate that. And thank you so much to Albert for really covering these 6 main steps that product manager really do. If you have any questions, please do leave them in the comment section. Albert, I'll try to reach out to Albert to answer them if possible. And if there's any particular questions that you want to ask, do share that as well. If you like more of this, let us know what kind of videos you want to know more about product manager or even just working in a tech startup. So anyways, thank you for watching and I'll see you next time. Peace.